The sky above Tiranosphere burned red that day. The once beautiful alien world, home to the royal palace of the Zalari Empire, was now a battlefield of fire and light. Massive ships clashed in the high atmosphere, their energy blasts painting the night like falling stars. Amid the chaos, alarms screamed through the corridors of the palace and soldiers ran in panic. The Zalari queen, Serath, stood at the balcony, her silver eyes reflecting the flames consuming her city. Her world and her empire was falling. The invaders had come without warning, merciless and efficient. The Drax Dominion, a cold and machine-like species, had broken through the planetary shield. The royal guards had already fallen, and now the queen's chambers shook with each explosion. She turned toward her advisor. "How much time do we have?" The old alien bowed his head. "Minutes, Your Majesty. The evacuation pods are gone. There is no way out." For the first time, Queen Serath felt something she hadn't known since her childhood: fear. She wasn't afraid to die. She was afraid to fail her people. And then, through the smoke and fire, a strange sound echoed down the hall. The sound of boots. Not the metallic steps of Drax soldiers, but softer, human steps. A voice followed, calm but firm. "Your Majesty? I hope you're still alive. I'm here to get you out." The queen turned sharply. Standing at the doorway was a tall man in a worn black flight suit, the symbol of a blue planet on his shoulder. Earth. His face was streaked with dust and sweat, his left arm bleeding slightly. But his eyes carried something the Zalari rarely saw: defiance. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Captain Elias Ward," he replied. "United Nations Space Command, or what's left of it." She frowned. "A human? Here far from home?" "Yeah," he said, glancing at the collapsing ceiling. "And so are you." Before she could question him further, another explosion rocked the palace. The floor trembled beneath their feet. The alien advisor shouted, "The Drax have breached the west wall." Elias moved fast, grabbing the queen's arm. "We need to go, now." Her guards hesitated, their spears raised. "Unhand the queen, primitive," one of them barked. But Serath raised her hand. Something in the human's voice and the calm, the confidence, told her he was not here to harm her. "Let him," she ordered. Elias led them through the smoke-filled corridors, every turn echoing with the sound of destruction. The palace once stood as a monument of elegance: marble walls, golden statues, glowing orbs of energy floating in mid-air. But now it was falling apart. As they ran, the queen asked between breaths, "Why would a human risk his life for me? The galaxy abandoned my empire long ago." Elias didn't look back. "Because when I see someone about to die, I don't check their species first." Something about those words hit her. No one had ever spoken to her that way. Not as a ruler, not as an alien, but simply as someone who needed help. They reached a long chamber filled with shattered crystal windows. Beyond it, the city burned in silence. The human scanned the horizon, then pointed toward a dark canyon. "My ship's there. Small, but it'll fly." A Zalari guard shouted, "Impossible. The outer gates are blocked." Elias smirked. "Good thing I brought my own exit." He pressed a button on his wrist device, and a low rumble shook the air. A black freighter, patched together from human and alien parts, broke through the smoke, flying low and wild. The craft crashed through part of the palace wall, hovering just close enough for them to jump in. The guards hesitated. "Your Majesty, it's too dangerous." Serath's eyes never left the human. She took a step forward. "Dangerous or not, I trust him." That sentence silenced everyone. Elias pulled her aboard as explosions erupted behind them. The freighter's engines screamed as he took the controls. "Hold tight. The Drax don't like when people steal royal cargo." The ship burst through the flames and into the night sky. Enemy fire chased them, plasma streaks lighting up the darkness. Elias twisted the ship between wreckage and debris with impossible skill. His hands moved fast, confident yet precise, like someone who had done this 100 times. Serath stared at him. "You fly like a madman," he grinned. "That's what they told me in flight school." The queen allowed herself a small smile, the first in days. But it quickly faded when a Drax warship appeared ahead, massive, blocking their escape path. "Can we go around?" she asked. "Not fast enough," he replied. "But I've got an idea." He flipped several switches and the freighter began to shake violently. "What are you doing?" "Overloading the reactor." It'll fry their sensors long enough for us to slip through. That could kill us. Elias gave a half smile. Only if I'm wrong. The Queen could only stare as the human pushed the freighter into a full-speed dive toward the warship. The alarm screamed, lights flickered, and then a flash. A massive burst of energy exploded outward, temporarily blinding the enemy scanners. Elias pulled the freighter upward at the last second, skimming under the warship's hull and breaking into open space. The ship's systems flickered, but they made it through. He let out a breath and laughed. See, perfectly safe. Sarath blinked, stunned. You humans are insane. He turned to her with a grin. Maybe, but we're good at staying alive. The freighter coasted into the darkness of space. Behind them, Tyrannus Feeve burned. Before them, the endless stars stretched like a silent ocean. For a moment, no one spoke. The Queen sat beside the human pilot, her elegant hands trembling slightly. My empire is gone, she whispered. Everything I ruled, everything I was, gone. Elias looked at her quietly. Then he said, then maybe it's time to build something better. She turned her head toward him. Why do you care? He shrugged. Because I've seen worlds fall before, and I've seen them rise again. Yours can too. There was a long silence. Then she asked softly, where will you take me? There's a hidden outpost on the dark side of the moon. You'll be safe there. And you? I'll keep flying. There's always another fire to put out. Something inside her tightened. You risked everything. For someone you don't even know. Elias smiled faintly. We humans have a bad habit of doing that. They landed hours later on the quiet moon base. As she stepped out, Sarath looked at the small, rugged structure, a place clearly not made for royalty. Yet it felt strangely peaceful. She turned to face him one last time. I will not forget this, Elias Ward of Earth. He nodded. I'll hold you to that. Then, after a pause, he added softly, if humanity ever comes back to the stars, I'll return for my answer. Her brows furrowed. Your answer to what? He smiled, stepping back toward his ship. To whether we're really as different as everyone says. Before she could respond, the freighter's engines roared to life. The ship rose slowly, its shadow passing over her face, and then he was gone, disappearing into the sea of stars without another word. Days turned into months. The Zilari rebuilt what they could. The Queen ruled again, but her people often saw her standing alone at night, staring up at the sky. Some said she waited for the human who vanished. Others said she only dreamed him. But every year on the night of Tyrannus's fall, she ordered a small light to be sent into the sky, a beacon with an old human frequency. 5 years had passed since the fall of Tyrannus V. 5 long years since the human named Elias Ward vanished into the stars after saving the Zilari queen Sarath. The galaxy had changed since then. Empires rose and fell. Treaties were broken. Old alliances turned to dust. Yet through it all, one woman ruled quietly, wisely, and alone. Queen Sarath rebuilt her world with her own hands. Tyrannus V was once again alive, its cities glowing beneath crystal skies, its people singing the songs of survival. To outsiders, it looked like peace had returned. But inside the palace, the queen carried a secret no one else knew, a promise, a memory, and a name she never spoke aloud, Elias Ward. Every year on the anniversary of the siege, she stood on the royal balcony and watched a small silver beacon rise into the sky. A human frequency unknown to her people pulsed from it, a signal she sent not for the galaxy, but for one man who had risked everything to save her life. Her advisors often asked, Your Majesty, why keep sending that useless signal? The human world is gone. Earth was destroyed centuries ago. But she always gave the same answer, her voice soft but certain, because humans have a way of surprising those who stop believing. The queen sat in her throne room that morning, surrounded by her council. Her empire was stronger than ever. Trade routes reopened, colonies rebuilt. Yet rumors of conflict echoed beyond Zilari space. The Drax Dominion, the same mechanical empire that had once invaded Tyrannus, was on the move again. A nervous counselor spoke up. Your Majesty, the Drax demand we join their alliance of order. They promise protection and punishment if we refuse. Another added, Our fleets are rebuilt, but not enough to resist another invasion. We must consider negotiation. Sarath raised her hand, silencing them. Her calm silver eyes scanned the room. The last time the Drax offered protection, they gave us fire instead. I will not kneel again. The council members exchanged uneasy looks. They respected her strength, but they feared her defiance. Many still whispered that it was the human's influence that made her stubborn. The reckless courage she had inherited from that strange Terran savior. When the meeting ended, Serath walked alone through the palace corridors. The halls had been rebuilt, brighter and grander than before, but they felt emptier somehow. As she passed the grand gallery, she paused before a large painting. It showed the moment of the palace's destruction. Flames, chaos, and in the background, a small dark figure carrying her through the fire. No one in the court knew who the figure was. But she did. Her hand touched the frame softly. "Where are you, Elias?" she whispered. That night she stood by her window looking at the twin moons of Tyrannus. The signal beacon blinked again, faint and lonely. Her guard, Captain Thalen, entered quietly. "Your Majesty, it's late. You should rest." Serath smiled slightly. "You sound like my old advisor." "Because he was right. You carry too many burdens." "I carry only what I must." Thalen hesitated. "Forgive me, my queen, but sometimes you seem to wait for something. Or someone." The queen's eyes stayed on the stars. "Perhaps I am." He bowed respectfully and left, not daring to ask more. Moments later, her communicator glowed. A private signal, encrypted and ancient. It flickered in a strange pattern. Serath frowned. "That's not one of ours." The pattern repeated again. 3 short pulses, 2 long, 1 short. It was a code she remembered clearly, the human distress signal. Her heart skipped a beat. She ran to the control console and ordered, "Trace the source of that frequency." The Palace AI responded. "Signal detected. Origin, outer orbit of Tyrannus system. Small vessel, single life form aboard." A chill ran through her. Visual. The holographic screen lit up, and there it was. A small battered freighter drifting silently among the stars. The same class of ship she had escaped in 5 years ago. Her hands trembled. "No, it can't be." The AI spoke again. "Incoming message, audio only." Static filled the room for a moment. Then a voice, older, rougher, but unmistakable, came through the noise. "Requesting landing permission. This is Captain Elias Ward, calling for the Queen of Tyrannus." The world seemed to stop. She froze where she stood. Her breath caught, and for a moment she wondered if it was a dream, a cruel trick of her mind. The voice repeated, calm and familiar. "Your Majesty, I'm coming home." Within minutes the palace came alive. Alarms blared. Guards rushed to defensive positions and ships scrambled to intercept the unknown vessel. The council panicked, thinking it might be an attack. Captain Thalen burst into the Queen's chamber. "Your Majesty, we have an unidentified craft approaching in human origin but heavily modified. Should we open fire?" Serath turned sharply. "No." "Stand down, Captain." "But the risk—" "I said stand down," she commanded, her voice cutting through the noise like lightning. The soldiers hesitated but obeyed. The Queen's heart pounded. Every step toward the landing bay felt like walking through a dream. As she entered the hangar, the massive doors slid open. The air shimmered with heat as the small ship descended slowly, its engines sputtering from age. Zalari guards surrounded it with weapons ready. The ship's ramp lowered with a hiss of steam. For a moment, nothing moved, just silence and the hum of machines. Then footsteps echoed. A tall man stepped down, his once dark flight suit now faded and torn, a few new scars marking his face. But his eyes, those same determined human eyes, still burned bright. Serath couldn't move. The guards aimed their weapons. "Identify yourself," one shouted. The man raised his hands calmly. "Easy there, big guy. I'm not here to fight." Then his gaze found hers, and everything else disappeared. "Your Majesty," he said softly, with that same half-smile she remembered. "Permission to return what I borrowed." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small glowing crystal, the royal signet, the symbol of her crown. The artifact he had stolen to unlock the palace vaults 5 years ago when he saved her. Gasps filled the room. The guards looked at each other in shock. None of them had ever seen the crystal up close before. Serath stepped forward slowly, her voice trembling. "Elias, it's really you." "In the flesh," he said quietly. "A little older, a little lost, but still me." The Queen's guards blocked his way. "Your Majesty, we must detain him." A human cannot be trusted. But she raised her hand. Lower your weapons. They hesitated. Now, she said firmly. The soldiers obeyed. Elias smiled faintly. You've still got that royal tone. Makes people listen. She took another step closer, her silver eyes locked on his. Where have you been? He hesitated, then looked past her, out the hangar window where the stars shimmered faintly. Earth, he said finally. Or what's left of it. A soft gasp rippled through the room. You found Earth? She whispered. He nodded. Found it, rebuilt it, and woke it up again. The Queen didn't fully understand, but she could feel the weight in his words. Humanity, the lost species of myth and ruin, had returned. Later that night, Sarath sat across from Elias in her private chamber. The others had been dismissed, the guards ordered away. Only silence filled the air between them. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, she said, 5 years. You vanished without a word. I had to, he replied softly. The galaxy wasn't ready for what came next. And what came next? Humanity did. He leaned forward, resting his hands on the table. We were scattered after the collapse, but we survived. Hidden colonies, secret outposts. It took years to gather them. Years to rebuild. Now, we're ready to step into the galaxy again. She looked at him carefully. And you came here first, he smiled. I made a promise. Her heart ached at those words. And what do you want now, Elias Ward? He looked at her, really looked at her, and then said quietly, to see if your people still believe in second chances. For a moment, she said nothing. The room felt heavy with emotion and memory. Finally, she whispered, You shouldn't have come. The council won't trust you. They still see humans as dangerous. He chuckled. Then it's a good thing I'm used to being underestimated. She couldn't help but smile. The same boldness, the same warmth, but behind her calm face, her heart raced. Because deep down she knew. His return meant change. The galaxy would never be the same again. That night, as Elias slept in a guest chamber, Sarath stood once again by the window. The twin moons glowed softly. The human ship rested below, small and quiet. She touched the glass and whispered, You came back. The dawn over Tyrannus V painted the royal city in golden light. From the palace balcony, Queen Sarath watched as the morning haze drifted across the horizon. Yet her mind wasn't on the beauty of her world. It was on the human who had returned from the stars, Elias Ward. The name echoed in her thoughts like an old song she couldn't forget. He was alive. After 5 long years, the human who had saved her life, the man everyone believed was dead, now walked again in her palace. It was supposed to be a moment of joy. But instead it was chaos. In the council chamber, the air was tense. The queen sat on her throne, calm but watchful, while her counselors argued loudly around her. One shouted, We cannot allow him to stay, Your Majesty. He's a human, a species known for war and chaos. Another added, The Drax Dominion has already demanded an audience with you. If they find a Terran alive, they'll see it as a threat. Sarath listened silently, her hands folded on her lap. Finally she spoke, her voice soft but commanding. Enough. The human stays under my protection. The room fell silent. A bold counselor rose from his seat. Forgive me, Your Majesty, but why? Why risk your throne for a single alien from a dead world? Sarath's eyes hardened. Because 5 years ago, when the galaxy abandoned us, it was that alien who carried me through the fire. No one dared to answer. Later, in the quiet of the palace garden, Sarath found Elias sitting on a stone bench beside a shimmering pool. The human wore simple clothes, but he looked strangely out of place among the elegant Zellari architecture. He was staring at the water, lost in thought when she approached. You don't seem to enjoy royal life, she said softly. He looked up, smiling faintly. I'm just trying to remember how to sit still. It's harder than you'd think. She smiled, then sat beside him. The council fears you. They think your presence will bring war. Do they? He said calmly. Then maybe they should meet a few more humans. She raised an eyebrow. You make it sound like there are more of you out there. Elias didn't answer at first. His eyes lifted toward the morning sky. There are, he said finally. More than anyone realizes. The Queen's heart skipped. You found them? He nodded slowly. After I left you, I traced the old Earth frequencies, the kind most species thought were just noise. They led me to hidden colonies, scattered human outposts, even ancient cryoships drifting between the stars. We were never gone, Sarath. We were just sleeping. She could see the fire in his eyes, that same unshakable determination that had once carried her through death itself. "What do you want from me, Elias?" she asked carefully. "Why return now?" He turned toward her. "Because humanity is coming back, and I need someone the galaxy respects. Someone who can help us walk into the light without being shot at." Sarath frowned. "You want an alliance?" "I want peace," he corrected. But peace built on respect, not fear. Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden sound of footsteps. Captain Thalen, her head of security, approached quickly, his expression grim. "Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion, but we've intercepted a transmission." Sarath rose. "From whom?" "The Drax Dominion. They demand to meet immediately, and they know the human is here." Elias's expression darkened. "That was fast." Sarath's gaze sharpened. "How could they know?" Thalen hesitated. "We believe they've been monitoring all transmissions near Tyrannus. They must have detected the old human signal you used 5 years ago." The Queen looked at Elias. "They were listening." He nodded. "They always are." That afternoon, the Drax envoy arrived, a tall, metallic being with a face like polished steel and glowing red eyes. It bowed stiffly before the Queen, its mechanical voice echoing coldly through the chamber. "Queen Sarath of the Zalari, the Drax Dominion greets you. Our sensors detected a Terran life form within your palace. Confirm or deny." Sarath's expression remained composed. "You have sharp ears, envoy. What business is it of yours?" The Drax's head tilted. "The human species is classified as extinct. Any surviving specimen is property of the Dominion by right of reclamation." The Queen's tone sharpened. "Property?" The machine continued, unbothered. "Humans are dangerous, unstable, and unfit for galactic harmony. Our law demands their containment." At that moment, Elias stepped from behind a pillar. "Contain this metalhead," he muttered. The envoy's eyes glowed brighter. "So it is true. A living Terran." Elias folded his arms. "Alive, breathing, and not for sale." The envoy turned to the Queen. "Your Majesty, hand him over and the Dominion will overlook your error." Sarath's voice was steady. "And if I refuse? Then Tyrannus will be sanctioned. Trade routes blocked. Defense grids disabled. We will isolate you until your people starve." A silence fell across the hall. Even the guards looked uneasy, but Sarath did not move. Her voice came calm and cold. "Then you will make an enemy of my crown." The Drax's mechanical face twitched, the closest thing it had to emotion. "You would defy us for one human?" The Queen's reply was quiet, but her words hit like thunder. "For this human, yes." The envoy's red eyes flickered. Then, without another word, it turned and marched out, leaving the hall in heavy silence. Elias looked at her with surprise. "You just painted a target on your whole empire." She met his gaze. "You saved my life once, Elias Ward. I will not let the galaxy take yours." That night the palace was tense. The Queen's advisors begged her to hand over the human. Protests filled the streets, fueled by fear of the Drax. But in her private chambers, Sarath sat with Elias again. He leaned against the window frame, arms crossed. "You didn't have to do that. You could have turned me in and kept your throne safe." She looked up from her desk. "You think I'd betray you?" He shook his head. "I think you're too good for politics," she smiled softly. "And you're too stubborn for your own good." A moment of silence passed between them, filled with the faint hum of the palace lights. Then Elias said quietly, "They'll come for me, you know. The Drax don't bluff. I know. And when they do, you can't stop them with just words." "I've faced worse odds," she replied. He chuckled. "You sound like a human." She looked at him and said, "Maybe I've learned something from one." The next day, a storm gathered over Tyrannus. Drax ships began to appear on the edge of the system, silent, dark, and menacing. The Queen's fleets went on alert. Her people watched the skies in fear. In the palace command center, Sarath stood beside Elias as holographic displays showed the approaching armada. 50 ships, Thalen said grimly, all armed, all broadcasting the same message, surrender the human. Elias looked at the screen. "They're serious." Sarath turned to him. "Then we'll be serious too." He frowned. "You can't fight them alone." "I'm not alone." She looked at him meaningfully. For a moment, he didn't understand, until he noticed the quiet transmission blinking on his wrist device. His eyes widened. "You sent a message to humanity." She nodded. "5 years ago you told me Earth would wake again. I believed you." Elias exhaled slowly. "You might have just started something big, Sarath." Her voice was calm. "Then let it be big." Hours later, the Drax fleet hailed the planet once more. Final warning: hand over the human or face extinction. But before the Queen could respond, another signal cut across the channel. A new voice, firm and human. "This is Commander Rhea of the Terran Reclamation Fleet. Step away from Tyrannus or you'll find out just how extinct humanity really is." Everyone in the command center froze. The Queen's eyes widened. Elias smiled. On the holographic screen, a massive fleet of human ships appeared from hyperspace, sleek, silver, and brimming with energy. The Drax fleet turned to face them, but they hesitated. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw Earth's symbol again, a blue circle with white stars, shining bright against the void. Sarath whispered. "You weren't lying." Elias grinned. "I told you. We were just sleeping." The Drax ships began to retreat, their cold logic deciding that this battle was not worth the risk. As the human and Zalari fleets held formation side by side, Sarath turned to Elias. "You came back with an army." He shook his head. "No, I came back with hope." That night, the Queen stood once again on her balcony watching the stars. Beside her stood Elias, his arms folded, a quiet smile on his face. "You realize," she said softly, "the galaxy will never forget this day." "Good," he replied. "Maybe they'll finally learn not to underestimate humans." She turned to him, her silver eyes glowing in the starlight. "And what happens now?" He looked back at the stars. "Now, we rebuild. Together." The wind carried their words into the night. As far above them, the human and Zalari banners flew side by side, symbols of two worlds reborn from fire and faith. The royal chamber of the Zalari palace had never been so silent. Every wall shimmered with blue light, and every guard stood frozen watching the human who dared stand before the Queen again. Elias Ward's presence alone disturbed centuries of royal order. Queen Sarath sat on her throne, her silver eyes locked on him. There was a strange warmth in her gaze, not the cold authority of a ruler, but the quiet recognition of someone who had waited far too long. The court murmured in fear. Some called him an imposter. Others whispered old legends, the human who saved the Queen and vanished into the void. But Elias didn't flinch. He stood tall, holding the small holographic disc that projected images of Earth, its oceans, its cities, and the people who had risen again after nearly being erased from history. Sarath broke the silence. "You said Earth woke up. Tell me, what does that mean?" Elias took a slow breath. "It means humanity is no longer hiding. We rebuilt. We learned. And now we're ready to stand again, not as refugees, but as equals." Gasps filled the room. The idea of humans as equals to the great galactic species was almost laughable to the council members. One of the ministers, a tall reptilian alien named Vekor, hissed, "Human lies!" Their world was burned, their fleets destroyed. Elias turned his head slightly, his tone calm but firm. "And yet here I stand." The Queen raised her hand, silencing everyone. "Let him speak." Elias pressed a button on his wrist device. A projection filled the air. Hundreds of human ships orbiting a bright blue planet. They weren't massive warships like the ones of the empires, but compact, fast, and full of strange energy signatures. The ships had human markings but glowed with technology the council couldn't recognize. Vekor stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Impossible." "That energy. It's not of your kind," Elias nodded. "You're right. It's not. We learned from the stars, and from you, Queen Sarath. You gave us the chance to survive. The knowledge you shared before Tyrannus fell, it helped us rebuild." Sarath's eyes widened slightly. "You remembered that?" He smiled faintly. "Every lesson, every word." The Queen stood slowly from her throne, the shimmering fabric of her robe flowing like liquid metal. "And now you return with this revelation. Why? Why now?" Elias's expression grew serious. "Because the galaxy is changing. A storm is coming, and humanity refuses to hide from it." The chamber erupted into chaos. The councilors shouted, demanding his arrest. "He threatens our peace." He brings human arrogance. He should have stayed lost. Guards moved forward, weapons in hand. But the Queen's voice cut through the noise, firm and sharp as steel. Stand down. Every soldier froze. The Queen descended the steps from her throne until she stood only a few feet from Elias. Her gaze was calm, but her tone carried weight. What storm are you talking about, Captain Ward? Elias tapped his device again. The projection changed, this time showing an enormous fleet, unknown ships with dark hulls and no identifying marks. They call themselves the Virith Dominion, a machine-born empire expanding from the outer void. They destroyed 4 systems last year. One of them held a human colony. A silence followed. Even the Queen looked unsettled. He continued, We sent envoys. They ignored them. We sent warnings. They erased them. And now they're moving towards Zalari space, Vekor sneered. So you bring fear to gain favor. How human. Elias met his gaze without anger. You think I came here for politics? I came because 5 years ago your queen risked her life for me. I owe her the truth, and a chance to prepare. The Queen's eyes softened for a moment, but her voice stayed regal. If what you say is true, Captain, why not go to the Galactic Council? He gave a small, sad smile, because they already made their choice. The room fell silent again. Sarath understood instantly. The Council had always feared humanity's return, feared what humans represented, unpredictability, resilience, and defiance. If the Council ignored the warning, it meant they were preparing to sacrifice outer systems like Zalari to protect themselves. She turned to her ministers. Leave us. Protests rose, but her command brooked no argument. One by one, the counselors and guards left until only she and Elias remained. The Queen approached the wide observation window, staring out at her world, the glowing spires, the moving airships and the endless stars. 5 years, she whispered. 5 years without a word. You return with stories of doom, and yet, I am not afraid. Elias stepped beside her. You shouldn't be. Humanity learned something from you. That even when the stars turn dark, there's always a way to bring back the light. She turned to face him fully. You've changed, Elias. You used to be reckless. He chuckled quietly. Still am. Just smarter about it. For a few quiet moments, neither spoke. The hum of the palace systems filled the silence. Then she said, You mentioned humanity rebuilt. What kind of world have you made? His eyes brightened slightly as he spoke. A free one, not ruled by fear or hierarchy. We united under one purpose and to protect life, human or not. Her lips curved faintly, still trying to save everyone even when they don't ask for it. He met her gaze steadily. It's what we do. Then, without warning, the doors burst open. A squad of royal guards rushed in, followed by Vekor, his face twisted with fury. Your Majesty, forgive me, but we cannot let him leave. The Council has demanded his capture. They say he's a spy. The Queen's voice was like ice. You disobeyed my order? Vekor's tail lashed angrily.
For your safety, yes.
This human is dangerous. Elias didn't move. His eyes flicked to the Queen, calm and waiting for her decision. Sarath raised her chin. Touch him and you declare war on my crown. The room froze. Even Vekor's soldiers hesitated. He snarled, You would defend a human against your own council? Yes, she said softly. Because he once defended me when no one else did. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Then one by one the guards lowered their weapons. Vekor glared at Elias with venom but backed away. You doom us all, he spat before storming out. When they were alone again, the Queen sighed, her strength faltering for the first time. They will not forgive me for this, Elias replied quietly. Maybe it's time someone stopped asking for their forgiveness. She looked at him, a strange mix of sadness and admiration in her eyes. You never learned how to bow, did you? He grinned. Humans bend, but we don't break. Outside, thunder rolled through the skies and a storm moving over the capital. The dark clouds mirrored the danger approaching from the void. Elias stepped closer, lowering his voice. The Virith fleet will reach this sector in 2 months. I can help you prepare. Earth has technologies your empire has never seen. Defensive systems, energy shields, fleet cloaks. But we need your trust. Sarath nodded slowly. You have it. He smiled faintly. Then we might just stand a chance. As lightning flashed across the skyline, the Queen placed her hand gently over his. 5 years ago, you promised to return for an answer. I never thought that answer would come with war. Elias looked into her eyes, the stormlight reflecting in both their faces. Sometimes the universe gives us both at once, love and danger. We just have to choose what to fight for. The Queen smiled sadly. Then I choose to fight beside you. Outside the window, a streak of light crossed the sky. The first human ship descending through Zilari atmosphere. Its engines glowing blue, the Queen whispered. Your people are here? Elias nodded. Not many, just enough to make a difference. And for the first time in centuries, the Queen felt something her empire had almost forgotten. Hope. As the thunder faded, she stood beside the human who had once vanished into the stars, both of them watching the dawn rise over a galaxy about to change forever. The storm over the Zilari capital cleared as dawn broke across the shining spires. The morning light painted the palace gold, but tension still filled the air. Everyone in the royal city had heard the rumor. The human had returned, and the Queen had chosen to protect him against the council's orders. The council called it betrayal. The people called it destiny. Queen Sarath stood at the high balcony of her palace, staring at the horizon. The distant sky shimmered faintly. The first human ships now orbited her world. She could feel the weight of the moment. Her world was on the edge of history, and so was she. Behind her, Elias Ward stood quietly, his dark uniform slightly torn, his face tired but calm. He had seen too much in 5 years. War, loss, rebuilding, and now this. Yet he stood there, steady as always. The Queen turned toward him. Your fleet? They arrived faster than I expected. Elias smiled faintly. We learned to move fast. The galaxy rarely gives humans time to think. A small laugh escaped her lips. You make it sound like you never rest. Not when others depend on us. He replied softly. There was silence for a moment as both of them looked at the vast city below. The morning air was cool and still, but deep inside the palace the council's anger boiled. They had already sent a message to the Galactic Alliance, accusing the Queen of hiding a human spy and threatening the stability of the entire region. Sarath knew what would come next. Pressure, threats, perhaps even invasion. But she didn't care. She had made her choice. She looked back at Elias. The council will not stay quiet. They will demand I surrender you, he nodded. I know, but this isn't just about me anymore. The Virith are coming. And if we don't stand together, none of this will matter. Her gaze softened. You came all this way just to warn me, didn't you? He met her eyes. I came because 5 years ago you saved me when you didn't have to. Now it's my turn. Sarath stepped closer. The light touched her silver hair, making it shine like starlight. And if I fall? What then? Elias smiled faintly. Then humanity will make sure your people don't. The Queen didn't reply, but her heart felt heavy. She wanted to believe that peace could be saved, that maybe the galaxy could finally learn something from humanity's courage. By midday, the palace command center came alive with energy. Human engineers and Zilari technicians worked side by side, installing strange new systems powered by blue energy cores. The palace officers watched in awe as human drones mapped the entire city within minutes, setting up shield nodes and communication arrays. Humanity's technology was different, simple but brilliant, efficient but flexible. This human engineering, murmured one Zilari commander. It's crude, yet it works perfectly. Elias smiled as he oversaw the setup. We build things that survive, not things that look perfect. The Queen watched him from the control platform. It amazed her how easily his people worked with hers. No fear, no hesitation. Just purpose. Humanity didn't see aliens. They saw allies. Soon the command screen showed incoming data, faint signals from the edge of the system. Dozens of unidentified ships. The Virith Dominion was near. 2 days, Elias said quietly. Maybe less. The Queen's advisors panicked. We must contact the council, one shouted. They will defend us. Sarath's voice was calm but sharp. They ignored the human colonies. They will ignore us too. We stand alone, or we don't stand at all. The room fell silent. Elias looked at her and gave a small nod. You sound like a human. The Queen smiled slightly. I learned from one. That night the palace lights dimmed as preparations continued. Elias walked through the quiet halls, remembering the first time he had been here, years ago, when the palace had been a ruin. and the queen was a prisoner of her own counsel. He had carried her through the fire, wounded and half-blind, refusing to leave her behind. Now here he was again, by her side, but this time as an equal. He stopped when he reached the royal observatory. The queen stood there gazing at the stars. She didn't turn when she heard him. "I used to think the stars were beautiful," she said softly. "Now I only see danger in them." Elias joined her, his voice quiet. "They're still beautiful. You just need someone to remind you why." She turned to him slowly, eyes shimmering. 5 years, Elias, you vanished without a word." "Do you know how long I waited for you?" "I had to," he said. "Earth needed me. Humanity needed to rise again before I could face you." Her expression softened. "And now that you have?" He smiled faintly. "Now I'm here to keep my promise." The queen's breath caught slightly. She remembered that promise, his last words before disappearing into the void. "When humanity rises again, I'll return for my answer." "Do you still want it?" She whispered. Elias nodded. "Always." She stepped closer until their hands almost touched. "Then my answer is yes." For a moment, time stood still. The stars outside burned brighter, and the silence between them was more powerful than any words. The next morning, alarms broke the peace. "The Virith fleet has entered orbit," a commander shouted. Dozens of massive dark ships appeared on the main screen, surrounding the planet like shadows. Their signals were cold and empty, their communications silent. Machines, built for conquest. Elias's eyes hardened. "Here we go." The queen turned to him. "Can your defenses hold?" "Maybe for a while," he replied. "But not forever." She looked around at her terrified council. "Then we fight together. All species, all hearts," and with that, the Queen of Zilari took command. Her voice echoed across every channel. "This is Queen Serath of the Zilari Empire. To all ships, all colonies, humanity stands with us. We will not bow. We will not run. Today we fight for every world that ever believed peace was possible." The words spread like fire. Across the skies, both human and Zilari ships powered up, engines roaring. The first blast from the Virith fleet hit the shields, shaking the ground. But the new human defenses held strong. Blue light surrounded the planet as energy fields flared. Elias watched the readings. "Shields at 90%. It's working." The queen smiled proudly. "You humans never stop surprising me." For hours, the battle raged. The Virith attacked again and again, but the joint defense refused to break. When one shield node failed, human engineers rebuilt it in minutes. When a ship fell, others filled the gap. Finally, after what felt like eternity, the Virith fleet began to retreat. The combined strength of human will and Zilari technology had done what no one thought possible. They had forced the machines to fall back. The entire palace erupted in cheers. Commanders hugged, soldiers cried, and for the first time in history, humans and aliens celebrated as one. The queen turned to Elias. "You did it." He shook his head. "We did it," she smiled. "You've changed my world again," Elias warred. He looked out the window, watching the fading enemy ships. "No, Your Majesty. We changed the galaxy." When the sun set that day, the sky over the Zilari capital was filled with light. Human and alien ships flying in harmony, their banners glowing side by side. The council could no longer deny the truth. Humanity had returned, and they were no longer weak or forgotten. Later, in the quiet of the observation dome, the queen stood beside Elias once more. "What happens now?" she asked softly. He smiled. "Now we rebuild together. The council will come around. They always do when they see who's still standing." She looked at him, her voice full of quiet emotion. "You humans, you fight with hope instead of hate. Maybe that's why the universe needs you." Elias turned to her. "And maybe that's why I needed you." For a long moment, they simply stood together. Two souls from different worlds, united by courage, loss, and something deeper than either could name. Outside, the stars shone brighter than ever before. The galaxy had changed, not through war but through unity, born from one act of compassion 5 years ago.